Welcome to Frontlines, to a special session today, and I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to do their shares and their cross-posting before we get started. So we'll take about 10-20 seconds here in the beginning. We'd like to welcome our viewers from across the United States and Canada, Europe and the Middle East, Australia and New Zealand, as well as, of course, Armenia and Artsakh. Today we have a very special session which has gone off our regular programming, which we try to do once a week near the tail end of a week. But the topic today was of such paramount importance. We felt it was important to raise the topic with our viewers and discuss the proposal that the Republic of Armenia human rights defender has recently made and matters related thereto. We'd like to thank, of course, the Asmares News, the Armenian Bar Association, and the Honorary Consulate for cross-posting our live stream. And I will kick it over to Garo for an introduction and an announcement as well.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone in the Northern Hemisphere. Good day everywhere else, and good morning, most importantly, in Artsakh, in Armenia. Please welcome our guest, who is no stranger, very well known to everyone, and a frequent visitor on Frontlines, because he frequently, rather 24/7, is very active on all things related to Armenians and Armenia human rights, along with Artsakh issues. He is the human rights defender of the Republic of Armenia, an adjunct professor at American University of Armenia, associate professor, PhD at Yerevan State University, and a former ad hoc judge at European Court of Human Rights, along with former advisor on torture prevention at Council of Europe, and many, many other engagements and responsibilities that he has carried out rather well over the years. I don't want to take too much time to go into all of that, because we want to hear from Mr. Tatoyan. We want to hear from Arman. Arman.
Hello, thank you very much. I greet everyone, and Garo-jan, Karnig-jan, thank you very much for inviting me again to this very important discussion and for your constant attention and very important attention to these very important issues, pressing issues that we face in Armenia. And of course, I think these are very interesting also for our compatriots in the world. And I thank you very much to our diaspora for following these issues, since they are very important, and apparently we need also assistance of our compatriots in solving these issues. And I consider these live streams, these discussions, one of the very important factors that largely contribute, I think, to the awareness raising and, of course, to contributing to the solutions. As you very rightly, yeah.
I'm sorry, Arman, I apologize. Do we want to very briefly mention, did you post that the petition on there by any chance? Do you know?
I can share it, yep. Go ahead.
Arman, I apologize. We wanted to inform our viewers so that we don't forget something very important. Karnig, you want to say a couple of words about it, please?
Yes, sure. I think that we'll be posting very shortly a change.org petition regarding, as we know, the fact that April is around the corner. I think this particular year is really important, and I'm happy that we have the Ombudsman on right now with us, because the work that that his office has done in Armenophobia, as well as anti-Armenian rhetoric and hate speech that has been prevalent throughout this war period, and in fact through the time period leading up to the war, is unfortunately reflective of a long tradition of anti-Armenian sentiment that dates back, as we have seen through this war, back to the genocide, and that the consequences of such rhetoric and the impunity that has resulted from non-recognition continues to plague the ability and the ability of the rights of Armenians to be protected. we see a direct line. We need to connect those dots. It's extremely important for us as Armenians, particularly in diaspora, particularly in the United States, where there's been a change of administration, to make sure that we do our part in order to connect those dots, to show the link between the events of 1915, the genocide of 1915, and if you will, the historical lineage that has brought us to a war in which ethnic cleansing of Armenians was paramount, who played an extremely important role. And as the Human Rights Ombudsman himself has reported about, in fact, has issued a number of documents related to this, the fact of hate speech and anti-Armenian rhetoric is now as pronounced as it has been throughout the time period. It's our job to be able to draw that link together. So as we think about this April, Garo will discuss a petition that is circulating shortly, and I'll post it on our site. But we need to realize that the impunity that has resulted from 1915, we are seeing that today in terms of Turkey's involvement with Azerbaijan in the war, as well as the rhetoric that really brings about that type of anti-Armenian sentiment that leads to actions, as we have seen with the war of aggression. Garo, if you wanted to say a couple of words, and I'll go ahead and post that before we get started.
Thank you very much, Karnig. The Pan-Armenian Council of the Western United States is a community-wide coalition of 23 plus organizations. It serves as a meeting ground for influential leading organizations to foster mutual understanding, coordination of efforts, and consensus building, all in the name of collective community interests and the welfare of Armenia and Artsakh. And the PAC-WUSA, the Pan-Armenian Council, and its member organizations have, a couple of days ago, launched an online petition urging President Joseph Biden to honor, the President of the United States, to honor his pledge to reaffirm the US recognition of the Armenian genocide in his annual remembrance statement by properly acknowledging the mass murder of 1.5 million Armenian men, women, and children by the Ottoman Turkish government as genocide. So we encourage you to get on change.org. The petition will be posted in our comments section. Sign it and share it, and encourage everyone to share it, more so than ever this year, given the 44-day war, and clearly the apathy and the disregard for genocide committed more than a century ago, and a genocide attempted to be committed yet again just a couple of months back. Thank you.
Arman, if I may, I'd like to start by digging into the proposal just a few days ago that you had made, a very lengthy and very detailed proposal, which is really the subject of our discussion today, regarding a proposed Syunik demilitarized zone. You have been on our program a number of times to speak about what your fact-finding missions to the Syunik region has revealed with respect to Azerbaijani military being, in some cases, meters away from Armenian villagers' homes, schools, and things of that nature. I think it's really, to those who have seen the presentation, obviously the caliber was remarkable, and the depth and the breadth of the actual proposal was really something to behold. And I think that it's very important for our viewers to learn more about the proposal that you have made, why you have made it, and what sort of traction you hope to get for it. If you wouldn't mind explaining the proposal to us, I think we'd appreciate it.
As you very rightly mentioned, we proposed to creation of a demilitarized security zone in the province of Syunik, especially in those areas related that are close to the border, the bordering areas. And this concept is based on, I think, very important factors and grounds that lead us to this conclusion. And this is to consider this solution to the issues that we have that exist. We have existence of these issues. The first factor is, as you very rightly mentioned, the deep Armenophobia and the rhetorics of the Azerbaijani political high-ranking authorities. And first of all, starting with the president. Seen over years and years in Azerbaijan, hate speech towards Armenians and animosity has been deepening and deepening. And I have to say that during the war, of course, we had intensive flow of hate speech, hatred, and animosity. And this hate speech and animosity even served as root causes for ethnically based torture and inhuman treatment of Armenians by Azerbaijani armed forces. I have to say that after the war, these rhetorics not only haven't stopped, but these rhetorics even got new development, new areas, and even they are deepening and deepening. Our analysis of we have also analyzed not only these rhetorics and the wording, let's say, that is used by Azerbaijani high-ranking authorities, but generally the level of hate speech and Armenophobia and how spread it is. I have to say that this hate speech, and exactly with the same words, is also being largely encouraged by culture and sports figures of Azerbaijan. And during the war, we could observe very easily calls for violence, calls for killings, torture, including Armenian children during the war by Azerbaijani culture and sports figures. And Azerbaijani armed forces, they knew very, very clearly that whatever they do against Armenians, it will be only encouraged. It will be only, they will get only glorification. That is why in many videos they were with open faces, with extreme cynicism, torturing our compatriots, not only military servicemen, but also civilians. And we have thoroughly analyzed all the videos. It is more than, we have more than 200, about 300 videos analyzed thoroughly. These are videos of torture and inhuman treatment. And I have to say that this analysis, these studies revealed very interesting trend. Azerbaijani armed forces in these videos where they torture and ill-treat or where they let's say explore their cruelties, they do it everything with exact words as the Azerbaijani political high-ranking authorities. First of all, the president of Azerbaijan. Literally, these are the same words. So, for example, Azerbaijani president, the president of Azerbaijan has famous speeches with the words that we expel Armenians like dogs, we drive Armenians like dogs, or Armenians are jackals, and this is a country of no values. This is an artificially created country on Azerbaijani ancient lands. Moreover, he several times stated in his official addresses to the nation that their political and strategic purpose is to return to their ancient Azerbaijani lands, especially highlighting Zangezur, the Syunik region, province of Armenia, and historical Armenian land Zangezur, and Lake Sevan with its, let's say, region with the provinces next to Sevan, and to Yerevan. And apparently, Azerbaijani military forces were fighting against Armenians. They had all of them, the conviction that they came to liberate as if their lands. And that is, and moreover, apart from all of this, when they were torturing the Armenians, including, when I say mutilations, I also mean, when I say cruelties, I also mean mutilations. So cutting different bodies, for example, of cutting different parts of bodies, etc. Azerbaijani military forces, one can easily observe how they're proud of what they're doing. And moreover, in many videos, they cut ears, they cut different parts of bodies saying in these videos that they promised to their friends, to their families, to their brothers, to take, for example, as gifts to them ears of Armenians, and to get this glorification, you know, for self-satisfaction. And this is the problem. And again, everywhere they're acting with extreme cynicism and with you know, with open, without any fear for impunity, with clearly knowing that they will get only glorification. So in in Syunik province, in the vicinity of our villages, where there appeared as a result of threats of war, as a result of torture, etc., what they do now, they conduct shootings, right? In the immediate vicinity. Our villagers can easily observe these shootings because they're even sometimes they're less than 500 meters away from our villages. For example, in the village Nerkinhand in Kapan community, or there are other communities such as Yerevart, Agarak, and I posted an evidence showing that clearly illustrating the shootings of Azerbaijani military. By the way, they have the shootings are there not only during nighttime but also daytimes and different periods, and no one can even predict when the shootings next time will be. And apart from that, Azerbaijani military forces appeared, let's say, especially border guards, appeared on our roads, on the roads that are connecting civilian communities one with another, and with their signs and flags. And I have to say that these are the exact soldiers and armed people who were torturing our compatriots several months ago. And these are the soldiers of the president who is generating deep Armenophobia and hatred towards Armenians. He is the chief commander of these soldiers, right? He is the one who was saying that we expel Armenians like dogs, like jackals. They have no values. This is an artificial country. We have to liberate our lands and we have to return. This is our strategic purpose, to return to go back to our ancient Azerbaijani lands, right? And apparently all of these factors lead to now, and then when I ask a question, so then how international community, civilized community will look at this when you have a right direct presence of these soldiers of the country that was torturing our compatriots several months ago. And I have to say, moreover, they are existence of Azerbaijani military forces or armed people, armed servicemen in the immediate vicinity of our villages and on the roads, it created also problems. It grossly violated rights of our compatriots, of civilians. Not only the real danger to their life, to their health because of the shootings, but also because of their presence. The majority of bordering villagers who live there, they are deprived of the possibility even to use their lands. We have many cases when people have their cadastral documentation, and according to this cadastral documentation, they have their land, plots of lands, their property belongs to them, according to the maps, even cadastral maps, but they cannot use it. Yes, someone says that, someone may say, you know, they appear there based on some Soviet Armenian maps, and this is their border. Well, I think this is a false argumentation, and no one can prove me that these are internationally recognized borders, because there has been no delimitation and demarcation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Moreover, even if we think that, well, this may be the border of Armenia between Azerbaijan, we should not forget about other factors, including about the factor that we have violation of our ongoing violation of our citizens, of our compatriots, bordering population. And you know, the process also totally contradicts international standards. There is there are certain international rules guides, handbooks, etc., produced by international bodies such as OSCE, UN, etc. And according to these exact rules, there are certain questions that we have to answer during the border determination process, to comply with international rules. And one of the most important questions is as follows: whether we have violation of the rights of bordering population, and whether the border determination problems caused issues for the life of people. Apparently, yes. This so-called determination process totally has undermined the way of life of our people, in not only violation of their rights, endangered their lives, but also it caused huge inconveniences. For example, there is a certain part, I will bring one example. There is a certain part when you go from the community of Kapan to other villages, we have some 5 or 6 villages, we have one main way, one road that leads to these villages. These are Chakaten, Tsav, Nelkinhan, Sarashen, Shikahoch, these villages. And when you go to these villages, one can easily observe that there are 3 or 4 places where you can observe Azerbaijani flags or signs. Because of the existence of these flags and signs, people refrain from using these roads, even for going to doctor, even for going for other purposes, I don't know, to get to the school, to hospitals, etc. Because of the existence of Azerbaijani signs and flags. And moreover, why I'm saying, because there are on these roads, we have not only Azerbaijani flags and signs, but Azerbaijanis use these flags and signs as reasons to bring their military, their soldiers, as if to keep the security of their signs.
I'm sorry, I want to interject because maybe different people have different understanding what a demilitarized zone is, or a DMZ or a DZ as commonly referred to. Because I note that there's a comment, I don't know who the individual is, who has written demilitarized zone in Syunik, what kind of Turkish Western blank suicide is this? My understanding of demilitarized zone is that it's an area in which treaties or agreements between military powers or nations or contending groups are forbidden from engaging in military installations, activities, or personnel. I'm reminded of North and South Korea. I'm reminded of Iraq and Kuwait. I'm reminded of Israel and Syria, the Golan Heights. I'm reminded of Lebanon and Israel in the southern region of Lebanon, post-1978 Israeli invasion. And I'm reminded of the unrecognized portion of Cyprus, monitored by UN peacekeepers, if you will. So this is not a new, untested, untried process. Can you share with the audience your vision and the necessity for creating a demilitarized zone? You set forth all the issues that take place on a daily basis that some of us are aware of and perhaps others are not. But to suggest that a demilitarized zone is possibly a Turkish Western BS, if you want to call it. I know one thing, that your interests are 100% for the safety and security of the Armenian people. So perhaps there's a disconnect there somewhere. You can bridge the gap.
Well, yes, I tried first to present the justifications, the arguments, let's say, that led us to this conclusion.
Right.
And the creation of military, or of a security zone entails that Azerbaijani military forces and armed forces who appear to be in the immediate vicinity of our villages on the roads, they have to disappear from there. They have to go from there. They have to leave these places, and at least in the distance of from 7 up to 7 kilometers, there should not be any Azerbaijani soldiers or signs or flags. So I mean that, of course, this concept means the following. Of course, we keep the Armenian Republic of Armenia has to keep all its forces, positions, etc. But from there, Azerbaijani military, armed, let's say, soldiers, armed people, armed servicemen, call whatever you want, and military servicemen have to leave these areas. There should not be even a single Azerbaijani military forces, and because we need this, this zone is very important. First of all, for the protection of the right to life and security, physical existence, and the physical security of our people, and of course for their rights to use properly, to exercise their rights to property and other rights, because this territory also is needed. This let's say some up to 7 kilometers, the minimum, also for our compatriots to be able to use their pastures, etc. And the lands that according to certain documentation of cadastral documentation, etc., belong to them. This is very important. So again, it means some people asked. Well, they asked some questions also to me, whether it means that at the expense of Armenian territory. Well, then I asked a question immediately, who said that the territory now on which Azerbaijani armed forces right now are placed belongs to them? Because there has been no demarcation and delimitation process. Consequently, we have to take as very important criterion the rights of our population, of our compatriots, and their existence in these territories apparently violates these rights. That is why, again, just to reiterate, they have to leave all the roads connecting our community, civilian communities, including their flags, signs, military. I don't know, all the military servicemen have to leave from there, and it should be protected zone for our compatriots. And I would even propose that our military position should be right, in front of the Azerbaijanis, but not in the immediate vicinity of Armenian civilian communities, because existence even of our civilian military positions, of course, cause problems generally for the civilian population. That is why our military positions also should be after the 7 or 10 kilometers, up to 7 kilometers, for our civilian compatriots to have the possibility to fully exercise their rights. Because right now we have even roads, for example, the road that goes through the village of Shurnukh or Vorodan. You have civilian military servicemen or border guards of from the Armenian side, and exactly some 10 or 15 meters away, you have Azerbaijanis, you have Russian border guards, and you have our civilian houses, right? 10, 15 meters away from these military positions. So now I'm asking a question: who said that this is an acceptable situation for the rights of children, of generally civilian population? That is why all the military positions, according to this concept, have to be moved to certain territory which is secure for the rights of our compatriots. Moreover, our civilian population is in a vulnerable situation, because over more than 150, 60, even more kilometers, there are no Azerbaijani civilians, only Armenians. That is why you have on one side only Armenian, right immediately, Armenian civilians, and on the other side you have only Azerbaijani military, which puts our civilian population in a very vulnerable situation. That is why, again, to sum up, all these military, all the sides with their military positions, they have to move from these places
Arman, I think that, Garo, before you ask a question, I think it's really important for our viewers to understand that last point. Really, I just want to emphasize that we're dealing not with Armenian civilians in front of Azerbaijani civilians. We're talking about a militarized Azerbaijani positions on war footing, right on the border, right within meters of Armenian homes, Armenian schools, and Armenian civilian life. And I think that, which is why, and correct me if I'm wrong, Arman, which is why the Human Rights Ombudsman's office felt the need to step into this area of the demarcation and delimitation of the border, because it was directly affecting average, everyday citizens' lives and security. Garo, sorry, I cut you off. You were going to ask a question. Sorry.
So that we understand what is going on, a demilitarized zone, tell me, Arman, if I'm wrong, or Karnig, a demilitarized zone is something that is achieved generally as a result of political discourse and negotiation, and it doesn't necessarily resolve territorial disputes to the extent that in this instance, Azerbaijan is making some really outrageous territorial claims. However, the demilitarized zone, once it is established, or the purpose for its establishment is to provide some semblance of security for the civil rights of the citizens that are in close proximity to that demilitarized zone. That's where I see the Human Rights Defender's Office's urgency. That's where I see you as the ombudsman being very much engaged, because at the end of the day, your constituents are the citizens of the Republic, and their safety and security is of paramount interest to you, but you're not really in a position to negotiate or implement or to realize such a zone, a demilitarized zone. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, and I'm not going to, because I know you do not engage in political discussions that are going on in the country, but it begs the question. Maybe I'll ask the question of my co-host. Where are the political players? Where's the political will to do that which needs to be done as government to ensure the security and safety of its citizens? It's mind-boggling to me. So where do we go from here? You've raised the flag. You've raised the flag of human rights and done so for so long, Arman. But what can you do beyond that which you have done? What can any of us do?
Well, this is Karnig and Garo, you very rightly illustrated that there should be no Azerbaijanis next to our homes, next to our villagers, and definitely they should leave these territories for our competitors to feel secure, and so that their rights are not violated. That is why I'm not entering into any political, discussions or any political debates to whom the territory belongs, etc. So I said the following: there is a dispute over these territorial things or whatsoever, because there has been no demarcation and delimitation, or at least there is no confirmed legal document saying that this territory belongs to Azerbaijan. So I put this argument aside, and I take the basis as basis what the problem that exists. This is a human rights issue. So if we now take this human rights criteria, then apparently existence of these people there violates very grossly rights of our people, and these are internationally recognized rights. These are rights that are recognized, also enshrined in our constitution, and of course, again, internationally guaranteed. So now, to whom I'm making these proposals? Of course, I have informed about this, all these problems, issues to our authorities as well, and I cooperate very largely with our ambassadors, with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, etc. But I also, my main targets are especially international bodies. And I've sent the reports, and I'm preparing, we're finalizing this final report on the security zone to send them to international bodies such as OSCE, such as United Nations, Council of Europe, etc. And I think that this is the exact situation when international bodies, they have to intervene, because all the situation that we have here in the vicinity of our borders, generally related to our bordering population, goes across all international standards that international organizations have been so far creating, have been advocating for, whatever they have. It violates totally everything. And when you look into the factors and into the situation what we have now, one easily gets an impression that there has been no legal regulations so far, international, but international regulations, they provide the opposite, totally the opposite. And I have to say that I have several already responses from very authoritative international organizations. I cannot release for the moment or publish for the moment about whom I'm talking about, but the process of discussions and these ideas are already, let's say, launched and invented, let's say, into the agenda of international bodies. That is why I think also this is one of the reasons that Azerbaijani media and generally in Azerbaijan, a huge campaign is now launched, has been launched against us, against this office. But I have to say that this will not stop us, and we will continue presenting all these violations. The important thing is now, I think, the international community, worldwide civilized community, has to prove now that human rights really prevail over everything, so that the purpose, the slogan that they have been advocating for so many years, that human rights and no one should be left behind and no human right ignored, this very important principle declared, proclaimed by UN, is not let's say beautiful, just a nice expression on the paper, but this is an important principle to help real people, to protect real people in real life.
See, I think that's a really important point, Arman Can, and I think that I think we need to reflect on the fact that rights themselves are not self-executing. It's not like that within any national system. It's not like that on the international stage either. In order to hold these international institutions to their own rhetoric requires constant and reasoned and analytical approaches that constantly put the issues before them, and so that they are forced to finally make decisions that take into consideration the issues of human rights that are paramount, particularly in this, as we have spoken about this before. The speed at which decisions are being made is not to our advantage. That the decisions need to be thought out because it is our citizens that are suffering the consequences of really abridged approaches to things as serious as demarcation and delineation of borders. I wanted to ask you, Arman Can, the makeup of is there a formalized commission? How are these decisions being made on the borders? How has it changed, if at all, from immediately after the trilateral statement to today? Have we seen changes in the approach, in the mechanics, in the participation of various bodies in that decision making, or is it the same?
Unfortunately, no. There are no professional works carried out on the ground. The bordering population has not been involved in the process, because according to international rules, all the issues should have been discussed with them as well, because it relates to their day-to-day life, to the vital issues and to their rights, which again, let's say, delegitimizes one of the factors which creates problems for the whole process. But I think this was also, the process was too speedy. Unacceptable, I have to say, speed. And, but the whole process was carried out under threat of new war and under threat of use of force by the Azerbaijan from the side of Azerbaijani authorities and military. So we had, everyone I think already knows the terrible cases when Azerbaijani military forces were approaching, soldiers were approaching our villages, including, when speaking to our villagers who were in these military positions and giving them just, couple of hours of time to leave those places. Otherwise, they're going to bomb the whole with drones. We have this kind of statements, going to bomb with drones to destroy our villages. And moreover, not only this, let's say, threats, but also Azerbaijani president several times was threatening, including in cooperation with Turkish authorities, threatening our country with the new war. And they continue it even now. During his address to the new Azerbaijan Party Congress, the president of Azerbaijan literally said that if Armenians create problems for us in using, for example, so-called Zangezur corridor or whatsoever, we will expel them. And this is the problem that, like we did during the war. Apparently, this is everything again are against. All these things are against international standards and rules. And the same goes for our delimitation, so-called delimitation and demarcation, because there's been no such a process, but at least let's call it very, let's say, with some conditional word, determination. Apparently, there should have been professional works, studies before that, let's say, process could start. And all the information should have been negotiated between the parties. This could be, I don't know, bilateral, trilateral, but at least all these things that we have now at our borders, that should have been results of negotiations, of discussions, and based on professional works. But unfortunately, there has been nothing. And that is why this is another factor, let's say, to claim that they have to leave from these territories, because everything has been carried out in violation at the expense of the rights of our villagers.
Arman, you said something a moment ago. You referred to the campaign of the attacks by the Azerbaijani government, public officials, all the way from their so-called head of state. But more specifically, we have seen reports of attacks against the Office of the Human Rights Defender of Armenia, attacks against you as the Ombudsman of Armenia. And you mentioned just a few moments ago that this will not stop us, you said. I'm going to, because I'm unable to not say anything about it, I'm going to ask you to tell us and the audience what exactly is going on. It's one thing to have external attacks. It's something entirely different when I look and see the government in Armenia trying to reduce the budget of the Office of the Human Rights Defender, especially since I'm particularly aware, and many others who follow and study the Constitution of the Republic know that the Office of the Human Rights Defender's Office is a sacred institution, separate and apart from the government. And for the government to play games, and I could say this, I will say this, to play games with the budget, I don't know, I thought there was a 44-day war where human rights of Armenians were violated and violated grossly. The Human Rights Defender of Armenia, who is now going to the southern region of the Republic and raising very legitimate and valid concerns on a daily basis, is now going to suffer a reduction of a budget so that he, and I refer to you, sir, and your office, can do less of a job in serving the human rights and the interests of the civilians of the Republic of Armenia. What is going on? I know you don't want to perhaps talk about it, but I'm going to press the issue. What can you tell us, Arman?
Well, the government has come up with a proposal with a bill proposing to lift financial guarantees, or let's say, put it this way, financial safeguards, which are important factors for our independence. And so here the issue is as follows. There is a very important provision in our law, providing that once the money is allocated to the Human Rights Defender's Office, then the amount of budget cannot be lower next year than it was previous year. But I have to say that this office has probably one of the smallest budgets among the public institutions. And the government now proposes to remove this very important safeguard, because this safeguard is there to protect this institution, even if this institution raises issues that the government may not like, but still they cannot cut funds. Now, according to the government proposal, if this bill passes also in the parliament, then it will mean the following: that if the government and the ruling faction in the parliament they don't like, let's say, the criticisms of the human rights defender or the issues raised by the human rights defender, then next year, or let's say even starting that year, I don't know, initiating maybe some process, they may reduce the budget of the human rights defender. There is an argument saying that, well, the government, if even the government proposes even the amount of money that is less than the last year's budget, then the parliament is there to decide, because according to the law, the parliament is the last instance to take the decision. But I have to say that this will not gonna serve as effective safeguard, and totally even a safeguard as such, because despite the fact that all these things are regulated in the constitutional law, and I have to say that according to our constitution, there are 7 constitutional laws in Armenia. This is directly enshrined in our constitution, and one out of these 7 laws is the law on the human rights defender of Armenia. So this is done to better protect this institution and to have the safeguards. But since the government has the majority of 83 members of the parliament, of the ruling faction, it will mean institutionally, again, I'm talking on institutionally, it will mean that they will be able to easily pass the law, even if the whole opposition votes against this bill, because in order to pass this kind of a bill or constitutional law, they will need only 80 votes, but they have 83. So institutionally, it means that even if this is even dangerous, then in a case that we had let's imagine we have in the parliament less than 80 or 70 members of a ruling faction, it will be even easier, because the government would propose something and the opposition would have the possibility to support the human rights defender. Now it is more dangerous, because it means that if decision is taken at the political level, it means that there will be no way to stop this. So again, I'm talking institutionally, right? Not based on persons, on the personal motives, etc., but institutionally. And moreover, I have to say that this law was passed we had taken, let's say, we have suffered a lot when to get, let's say, to have the adoption of this very important change, but at least we have it in the law, and this is, I think, a very big success. And if this safeguard is removed from there, it will be, believe me, so hard to get it back. And I have to say also that, I have proposed, and I'm proposing now also, I say, look, I understand that the country experiences financial difficulties, economic problems, and you have to reallocate money, because this is one of the main reasoning that the government, that the Minister of Finance is bringing to me. And another reason is that this regulation hinders foreign investments in Armenia. And if I say if the only hope of this country is the Human Rights Defender's Office, okay, I agree. Let's change the law, but let's put objective criterion under this, let's say, change. For example, if the government decided to cut budgets of all institutions, they can approach us, no problem. And there is a regular practice. We always give back the money that we didn't use. And last year, for example, there was a reduction of, voluntarily, reduction of more than 24 million Armenian drams. Our partners from the government asked, and we, let's say, agreed with them. We gave whatever we could. So what we say, if there is an objective need, not only targetedly, let's say, that is targeted and related only to this office, but relates to, it is a general requirement, relates to other offices, public institution. And when you discuss the priorities with me, because maybe for this year's priority, I have certain, let's say, tasks, and for me, human rights priorities, I don't know, they relate to the borders, to closed institutions, prisons, etc. After this discussion, yes, let's get the reduction. But the government did not agree with this, and they have sent this law to the parliament already without any changes. I have to say that I consider this as a discriminatory bill, because I look into this in the context of what is happening. Some time ago, like a couple of weeks ago, there was also a reduction of our technical capacities when the government, let's say, took from us some of our vehicles. And I have to say, the interesting thing was that this decree was only about the office of the Human Rights Defender, where one could think as if we have dozens of or hundreds of cars, and it was very urgent to take all of them immediately within 1 week. But anyway, since there was I decided not to raise it publicly at that time, and I would not raise it, never, if we did not have this new, let's say, initiative of giving the possibility to the government to cut or to reduce the funds. And of course, including the plus, I can add to all of this on the top. I would say from time to time, attacks also in social media in the form of insulting speech, hate speech, not directly by, let's say, I would say by authorities, of course, but pages and social networks that are affiliated with them. And I even, one time I had to announce that I have solid grounds to believe that these are carried out or organized by high-ranking officials, also some high-ranking officials. And I've composed a closed report, and I'm going to send it to also international partners. So this is it. Again, I'm ready to. I had to raise this issue publicly. I had, just literally have to say, I had no other choice, because all my internal fights, let's say, internal discussions, they did not give any results. So this is it. And
you know, Arman, if I may, you know, I think that, and I'm happy Garo asked the question, because I think that what we've been reading regarding these attacks and this positioning against the office is really concerning, because I think we have to look at the context of it. I read a survey very recently of various government institutions within the Republic of Armenia. I think there were 25 or so positions and institutions that were surveyed among the people of the Republic. And not only does your institution have a rank, a level internationally, which allows it to make statements directly to the Human Rights Council, but even within the Republic, you were ranked, if not the first, then the second, or in the top 3, I believe, of institutions that are surveyed as to, you know, I think the question was something to the effect that, you know, who has done the best job in their particular capacity within the Republic. And obviously, you know, support for the army was very high. And after the army, it was the Human Rights Ombudsman. And I have to say, various institutions within the government ranked rather low. Let's put it that I'll be polite about that. But I think that is actually the context that we're dealing with this. And I think it's particularly concerning because institutionally, there are safeguards to protect this particular non-governmental office from these types of attacks for the welfare of the citizenry. And I wonder, and I don't know if you can answer this question, is there a political context to this, do you feel, against the institution, perhaps not against you individually, but given the surveys that are coming out and the reception that the Ombudsman's office is receiving among the people compared to a number, 20 some odd different institutions, and the possibility of elections coming forward, is there a concern? Is there a political concern?
I have to say no, Garo. This institution is depoliticized, apolitical institution. We have nothing.
Apolitical. You mean apolitical?
Apolitical.
Yeah. But
Arman,
Freedom
institution.
But Freedom House is already echoed, it's concerning. Go ahead.
Freedom House expressed its concerns. Well, understandably, this issue would be under the direct attention of international bodies, because human rights institutions are very important, civil society, etc., and democratic institutions generally. No, this is a non-political institution, of course, and I have nothing common with politics, and I have no reasons related to politics, no purpose, nothing. So only protecting human rights and only doing our job, that is why I have never had any even links to politics, and I always try to stay away. And all my statements related to any processes, to human rights, they always use human rights wording, and I think this is the only safeguard, only guarantee that saves this institution, have saved in general, not only when I'm now the current ombudsman, but also during my predecessors. And that is why no one could accuse, and now I think in these kind of issues. Of course, I was very glad to see our public confidence and perception and public perception in this institution, which is very good and makes me and all our team members feel very proud of it. This is very important. And I have to say that also this is that we have these institutions generally in the world, they have certain accreditation, and we are an A status institution. We get our accreditation from the United Nations, and there is a special, let's say, commission, independent commission, which gives the resolution, but the process is, let's say, under the UN patronage, so to say. And apparently the adoption of this new law will, I think, affect our evaluation, and maybe, most probably, I don't know, I think it will result in re-evaluation, or who knows, maybe re-accreditation. And I have also to say that the Azerbaijani authorities last year, they changed their law on the Commissioner of Human Rights, and they inserted there literally the same provision as we have now, that the government wants to remove it. And they already applied to get A status, because now they have B status. And what I will explain, just what does it mean to have E and A and B. A status means, first of all, that you have international recognition of independence and of effective work. This is the highest level of independence. Second, it means that the information gathered by us and presented to our international community is credible, is recognized internationally. For these reasons, this institution, in difference with Azerbaijani institution, for example, has all possibilities to submit their own submissions to international bodies through their own channels that are available only for A status institutions. And A status institutions are kind of they are considered also institutions that have the right to be elected. in governing bodies of international organizations, and to vote. We have the right to vote. For example, this institution of our neighboring country has no right to vote in international different organizations, meetings, etc., in elections. This is very important guarantee, and all institutions, all human rights institutions in the world, they do everything. They struggle very hardly to get a status. And once you are deprived of this status, it is very hard to get it again back, because reaccreditation always is a very difficult process. And moreover, the commission, the independent group of people that grant this institution, this group is very independent, acts very, let's say, confidentially in a secret way, and you never know, let's say, what will be the result. So that is why having all these things said, and having all these challenges, especially outside of the country, inside the country, of course, it makes us now to concentrate. For example, during this, I don't know, week or more than a week, we other priorities are kind of not left away, but still are kind of, one can feel that it became kind of a secondary, because we have now to focus on our on the justifications that why this initiative of the government is unacceptable.
Arman, we're nearing our 1 hour mark, but I did want to ask you, in terms of I would say the top 3 items on your agenda moving forward over the next month or so. We spoke obviously about the Syunik border region and the work that you're doing there. If you would, just in terms, understanding, of course, that you're followed by a number of supporters. Not only are your approval ratings high within the Republic of Armenia, but as you may know, you are supported and followed by a number of Armenian compatriots throughout the world, as well as leading international lawyers and human rights lawyers and human rights professionals that look at you and the work of your office as absolutely tremendous. I wanted to ask you to give us, I would say, a top 3 list of items where diasporan Armenians, where Armenians throughout the globe can assist in the efforts of your office. What are the 3 main areas? A lot of it is about information, of spreading information to the right people, and to put pressure on various international organizations and have them appreciate and understand the circumstances that you're raising. What can be done? And if you wouldn't mind closing us out with some thoughts of your, assuming, and as you should, that you have a large following and people understand and appreciate your work absolutely tremendously, and would like to assist in that effort. What can be done from among Armenian compatriots and others?
Thank you for this important question, Garo. What I want to say, the important thing, first of all, I want to say that when it comes to this 3, let's say, main issues that I think are very important and would need also assistance of our compatriots, of our diaspora organizations and compatriots living outside of Armenia. Number 1 issue is, of course, related to Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh. These are rights of our compatriots who live in Artsakh. Unfortunately, this war kind of because of this war, unfortunately, we speak less about rights, about Artsakh from the right to determination from that context, which is I think which we have no right to allow this happen, and we have to raise this issue that living next to Azerbaijanis is in the current conditions this is a real threat to their physical security and is an existential issue, and to their vital rights, because we have the continuation of deep Armenophobia policy of hatred. Even President of Azerbaijan declared himself that during his address of March 5 this year, saying that we have the result of the war thanks to the hatred that our whole generation feels towards our enemies. And this feeling of hatred and animosity is being encouraged and encouraged. It gives us, it forces us to speak more, to speak loudly about our compatriots' rights, but putting the right directions, let's say, that existence of living in the same country, you know, I mean, Azerbaijan, of course, of our compatriots in Artsakh is not possible. And that is why the right to self-determination after the war becomes even, I would say, more urgent and a pressing issue. The second thing, just to keep it short, is of course the level of Armenophobia and hate speech and animosity towards Armenians. And of course the speeches of the directions, let's say, addresses, messages of speeches of the president of Azerbaijan that get more and new directions, which is again very important to address. Azerbaijani president is always accusing or trying to accuse Armenians in being fascists or in fascism, etc. But I have to say that one has to look very close into the speeches of the president of this country, and it will be very easy already who is disseminating these ideas. I think these ideas coming only from them. You will not find even a single authority of Armenia in any time who could attack the people of Azerbaijan. The only speeches or let's say so-called accusations or I don't know whatsoever only were with the authorities of Azerbaijan and armed forces, never with the people of Azerbaijan. You will not find this kind of rhetorics from the Armenian side, from the authorities of Armenia. That is why we have to bring this, I think, real intentions, because these rhetorics, these speeches, they disclose the real intention of Azerbaijani authorities, not only Azerbaijan, but also Turkey. The vivid example is the speech of the president of Turkey on December 10, right after the war, and during a military event, parade, which was dedicated to the glorification of results of the war. And the president of Turkey was there literally comparing the Artsakh war, this last war, with the Armenian genocide, and was glorifying the souls of those who perpetrated, who organized and perpetrated the Armenian genocide. I think we have to look into these very interesting motives, and because they disclose the real motives and the real intentions. And of course, the third issue, I would mention the issues related, human rights issues related to the borders of our country, to the human rights. From my perspective, these are human rights related to the border situation, and of course, human rights of our bordering population, which is very important. And I think this, and from my perspective, I raised this issue of creation of a security zone that we have just discussed. And of course, having said all of this, let me mention again that this office, despite the difficulties that we have in the country, we deal only with human rights. Our purpose is only to protect human rights. We are not involved in any of the processes. This is against our, let's say, against our mandate, against our rights, against our interests. And believe me, no one is interested in this office to get into this strange, processes, problems, etc. Because I think staying in this strictly within our mandates, within human rights protection mandates, gave us more possibility to help our people, to protect our people. And moreover, here we are in this, when we have this kind of, let's say, policy, then we are better perceived by international community, because we are only human rights oriented people, and moreover, unfortunately, this political agenda and the challenges that we face in the country, they kind of spread kind of a shadow on the human rights issues, unfortunately. And unfortunately, human rights priorities are not, let's say, perceived and evaluated in a sense that they should have been. But still, we are there, this office is there to protect human rights, to advocate for human rights and to promote human rights, and we will continue doing so. Thank you very much for this possibility. I consider these discussions very important method, very important, let's say, way to bring to our compatriots real human rights issues to their attention, and of course for raising and trying to find solutions to this.
Thank you, Arman Can. And before I kick it over to Garo for his last words, I want to stress the very first point that you raised, which it could not be a more. Our guest a few days ago, Ghazarian, had spoken about doubling down on Artsakh. This is a very important historical moment, and our focus, our diligence, our vigilance with respect to the rights and the protections and the security of our compatriots in Artsakh is more important at this moment than any time ever in our history. And I think that we can all appreciate that. And I thank you again, Arman Can, for raising that point as the first and perhaps the most paramount concern that we as an Armenian global nation need to be thinking about. And with that, I'd like to ask Garo to wrap us up for today.
Thank you, Karnig. There's an Armenian proverb that says, all men have 3 ears, one on the left of his head, one on the right, and one in his heart. Arman, we have worked with you closely. We have followed you. The world is following your efforts, and you clearly are making use of all 3 ears, but always being true to the one in your heart. I want to thank you for staying the course. I want to thank you for doubling down and then doubling down yet again when and if necessary. I want to thank you for being measured and letting go of many overreaching behavior that you endure. But I want to set the record straight. Karnig and I have been co-chairs of the Armenian Rights Watch Committee of the Armenian Bar Association. Over the years, both Karnig and I and other members of the Bar Association of the Rights Watch Committee, Saro Kerkonian, Armen Hovanesyan, and some time ago Edwin Minasyan, and for a bit Giray Kasabian, we have collectively authored over 50 statements, critical statements over the years, criticizing previous governments for their treatment of Armenian civilians, for their violations of civilians' rights for freedom of assembly, for meddling with judicial proceedings, prisoners' rights, voting rights, irregularities with elections, you name it, we have spoken about it. None, however, to me, this is my personal opinion, none, however, have been due to the previous government's direct attacks on the one institution entrusted and mandated by the Constitution to guard against violations of any of these rights that I just spoke about. I view the recent attempt by the government of Armenia to slash the budget of the Human Rights Defender's Office as one that does not compare to any of these other indiscretions by previous governments, all combined. Why do I say that? Let me be clear about something. The transgression of the government into a constitutionally protected independent status of the Ombudsman's office is condemnable. It's condemnable because it weakens the only institution which, after the September-November war, continues to this day functioning at a high rate of effectiveness, doing beyond that is humanly possible. I could say that. Others would agree. Also, let me be clear on something else. An attack on the viability of that office, of your office, sir, to gut the budget, it's an affront that is worse than any other human rights affront that can have happened internally. We're not talking about external affronts. This government has been at the helm of Armenia's foreign and domestic affairs. I am not, one to publicly talk politics to the extent that I perhaps am allowing myself to do that now. But this is the government that has been the gatekeeper of the war, only to oversee the gates being crumbled. I don't want to hear about whose fault it was. This is the gatekeeper of a war to see the gates being crumbled, to see havoc, to see mayhem having been caused upon our people. And bringing to our people today what we have is, in the 21st century, a revisiting of the 20th century calamity. That's what we have. That's what we saw. With all of social media, with all of the technology, we saw from far and from up close, and some people endured it, and thousands lost their lives, and thousands more do not have their sons and fathers and brothers. To suggest that from this catastrophe, the Human Rights Defender's Office, fighting for the rights of the prisoners of war to be freed, fighting for the rights of the civilians of the Syunik, Kerkonian, and the southern border region, should have its budget cut, should have vehicles removed from the number of vehicles it has at its disposals, which is less than 10, is ludicrous. It reeks of something really sinister. Either that or people have lost their mind in Yerevan. The government would do best by increasing the budget, yes, increasing the budget of the Office of the Human Rights Defender. It is the least it can do to remedy that which has led Armenia and the Armenians of the diaspora to this day, to this despair, to the period of mourning and the period of uncertainty. So let me caution the government. I, Garo Ghazarian, let me caution the government in as polite a way as I can. Don't cross the line. Don't cross the line of violating the last remaining sanctity of the Armenian civilian in Armenia, the right to reach out to its human rights defender and ask for redress and ask to be protected as it relates to his or her human rights. Let me just go back to the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to change.org. Please sign the petition. Yes, it's genocide. And make the President of the United States, Mr. Biden, hold on and satisfy and meet its pledge. I won't hold my breath, but let's do it anyway. Arman, we'll be in touch. Karnig, thank you for the opportunity. The rest of you out there, have a great day in Artsakh, great day in Armenia, and a productive day everywhere else in the diaspora for the benefit of homeland, Artsakh and Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you.